Welcome back to another video. We're out here on Staten Island Airfield and it is gorgeous. This is the first really beautiful day here in March and I wanted to come out and make a couple of videos. And the first one we're going to be talking about today is this little guy right here, the GoPro Hero 11 Mini. I want to talk about how it compares to the GoPro 11, how it compares to the GoPro Hero 10, how it compares to the Bones, and how it compares to the DJI Action 2, because I think those are really its biggest competitors. It's really designed to be a tough, rugged, no frills action camera that's meant to be lightweight, and for those who fly FPV, that's a great thing, because there's no screens on this little guy to bust. Well, I guess there is this screen, but I'll get into that in a second. Let's start out with the GoPro Hero 11 Mini Black. We're just gonna call it the Mini, or Hero 11 Mini from here on out. But starting out, let's talk about the pros. And first and foremost is the weight, the battery life, and the form factor. As far as the weight goes, it's 120 grams, give or take, which is about the same as a Hero 7 Black, which is one of my favorite action cameras to fly on a FPV freestyle drone. You're not going to stick this on a 25mm Cinewhoop, it's just a little too heavy for that. But if you're flying freestyle, this thing's weight is pretty much about perfect. It maintains enough weight where doing pitch tricks still works perfectly, but it's not too heavy where it feels like you're flying a brick. And for me, that is a great benefit to the Hero 11 Mini. Next, the form factor. The fact that this has no screens, the fact that you can remove these little finger mounts, I think the actual form factor of this camera is about perfect. I don't think there's anything more I could ask from a rugged action camera as far as form factor goes. Obviously, a little smaller would not be a bad thing, but I think its form factor is actually really good for FPV, especially since it has that really rigid metal heatsink on the back. You're not getting issues with the battery on your FPV quad scooting forward or the action camera leaning back, punching into the battery and breaking a screen, because that is something I've had happen to me several times and it is frustrating. In addition to the form factor, the performance is obviously fantastic. It is basically a Hero 11 Black. That's basically what it is inside. Its performance is fantastic. Compared to the Hero 10, it records at higher frame rates, it records at higher bit rates, it can run GoPro Hero Labs, and I think it's been more reliable for me than the Hero 10. I've had a couple of Hero 10s have some unexpected crashing issues, unexpected freezing. It hasn't been a perfect camera, and I think the Hero 11 fixed a whole ton of those issues. And then as far as the battery life goes, I'm going to dig into that more in the cons, but the battery life itself is actually really good. The battery lasts for pretty much a full day of flying with very little need to recharge, and it does use just straight USB micro or USB mini. Nope, man, I'm messing this one up today. It does just use straight up USB-C to charge, so you just plug it in, it charges up, you're good to go. Now let's dig into the cons, because this list is a little longer than I expected it to be. I kind of expected this to be a no-frills, bulletproof little action camera, and it hasn't been exactly that. Let's start out with staying in that vein of charging. It takes a long time to charge, like a suspiciously long time to charge. Usually I'll plug it in and I'll come back an hour or so later and that red light's still blinking. Generally when I'm charging it, I'm leaving it overnight, coming back in the morning and it's charged up. But having to wait for that thing to charge is kind of frustrating and annoying. And the fact that it doesn't have a replaceable battery does really stink. One of the things I really like about the DJI Action 2 is it charges up super quick off that little remote, the secondary attachment piece, the little magnetic piece. It does charge up pretty quick. So you can pick up enough battery charge for another flight in usually 5 or 6 minutes. Here, not quite the case, and it's one of my biggest gripes with this overall. Second, I think it's been resolved for the most part. I have had some reliability issues specifically with the Mini that don't seem to be present in the actual GoPro Hero 11. Just some weird like hiccups, some freezing, especially when charging. I've had some freezing issues. The newer firmware seems to have fixed some of that, and now that I'm on GoPro Labs, it seems to be more ironed out, but it's something I have dealt with, and I don't know if it's because this is a more niche camera than the actual GoPro Hero 11, so there's just less testing or less effort put into the actual camera firmware, but it's something I've noticed and something I definitely wanted to mention. I think most of the heat related issues that people were reporting early on have been quashed in recent firmware. I have yet to have an overheating issue, but since it is now March here in Staten Island and I've been flying it throughout the winter, heat really hasn't been a big deal for me. So I can't really comment on that. Once we get into summer, I think I'll probably have a more nuanced opinion about how the Hero 11 Mini deals with heat. Next con for the Mini is actually the screen. I know I said before I hate having screens on a GoPro, but I kind of miss having the little screen that was on the Session. This screen is just a little bit harder to see, a little bit harder to use, and because there's only two buttons, the one on the front and the one on the top, adjusting settings really has to be done in the app. And the app is still not perfect. So the actual workflow, as long as you just keep it in like your standard video mode, it works perfectly. You just power it on, click record, you're good to go. It's no fuss, no muss. But if you have to do anything else, if you want to change settings, if you want to adjust white balance, anything like that, you're in for a little bit of a chore because you do have to go into the app. Now that I am using the GoPro Labs firmware, I literally have a QR code I hold up in front of the GoPro and it changes all the settings, so it's a little easier doing that. And I think if you're going to use this camera, get the GoPro Labs firmware and use that to change settings and make sure your camera is set the right way, because again, it seems like it was designed to be a professional tool, and because of that, it is not as consumer friendly. And that pretty much sums up the pros and cons. I think realistically, if you're a professional, if you fly FPV, if you put your camera in places you do not want to have a screen on it, the GoPro Hero 11 Mini Black is a fantastic camera, and I would highly recommend it for those people. If you're anyone else, if you're a regular consumer or you want something to record family videos, you want an action camera, this is not the action camera for you. Having a screen makes using an action camera so much better and easier. I could not recommend this to some regular person because it's kind of a pain in the butt to use, and it has a lot of quirks that make it great, but also make it awful as far as the user experience goes. I don't think adding a screen to it would make it better. When compared to its competitors, starting with the main ones from GoPro, obviously the Hero 10 and the Hero 11, this camera's gonna compare not so great because you're losing a whole bunch of functionality. You don't have a replaceable battery. Charging is a little more difficult. There's no screen to adjust your settings. All in all, I think the Hero 10 and Hero 11 for most people is gonna be the better camera. If you're flying FPV, I think the headaches for the Hero 11 Mini may be worth it if you want a slightly lighter camera for your quad. But again, that's more up to you, and it's gonna be a little bit more of a Coke and Pepsi. I do think the Hero 11, I know Bot Grinder has said it over and over again, that Hero 11 for him has been fantastic. Same goes for Cricket and a bunch of other people who just fly straight full-size GoPros. I know Stinger Swarm swears by the Mini, but again, I think it's gonna be a Coke and Pepsi. If you're willing to put up for the headaches, I think it's worth it. For FPV pilots, for everyone else, just get a GoPro Hero 11. I think it's the best performing action camera. If you can't swing that full price of the Hero 11, just get a Hero 10. The Hero 10 is still a phenomenal camera. Let's compare it to the DJI Action 2, and I think that's where it gets a little bit more interesting, because I think the image quality coming out of this is far superior to that DJI Action 2. I don't think there's even a slight comparison. But that said, the DJI Action 2, while it is quirky and it has a whole bunch of workflow issues, I think overall, I actually still really like flying it compared to the Hero 11 Mini. If you want the lightest possible durable action camera, I think that DJI Action 2 is still a great option. But if you want the best image quality in a light package, GoPro 11 Mini. I think it kind of beats the DJI Action at its own game. Hopefully this is kind of a wake-up call to DJI to skip going for the standard GoPro competitor and make a DJI Action 2 too. Will they actually do that? I have no idea. I honestly doubt it, because DJI's commitment to the FPV market seems questionable at best. That pretty much sums up my thoughts and feelings on the GoPro Hero 11 Mini. It's a great camera for FPV, for commercial users. If you're a standard average consumer or just want an action camera, I would look somewhere else, possibly at the standard GoPro. with all that said, thank you for joining me in today's video. As always, Amazon affiliate links are down below. Check them out. They give me a little kickback to help make this channel bigger, better, do all that fun stuff. Let me know down in the comments if you've had experience with any of these action cameras, including the Mini 11. Have you had good experiences? Have you had freezes with the new firmware? Let me know. As always, if you liked the video, please subscribe. Helps me in this stupid algorithm thing from YouTube, which is always a nightmare. And like the video, because it helps in the algorithm. Thank you for joining me on this video. Catch you in the next one. Bye.